Hey, it's Josh Modell. We're dropping something special in your feed today. It's a 4-part podcast series called Sound Influence, the Art and Soul of Puerto Rico, created in partnership with our friends at Atlas Obscura and Discover Puerto Rico. The series is narrated by legendary actor Luis Guzman, and it includes stories from the island featuring musicians Los Rivera Destino, Pachyman, and Andrea Cruz, plus film director Miguel Arteta, EGOT winner Rita Moreno, and much, much more. The podcast utilizes not just interviews, but field recordings, original sound design, and original compositions to tell some of Puerto Rico's most compelling stories. Check it out.
Hola, I'm Luis Guzman, and welcome to Puerto Rico. I'm uniquely Puerto Rican, and what I mean by that is I'm a proud Boricua, whose idea of heaven is chilling on Crash Boat Beach in Aguadilla, listening to Hector Lavoe, El Gran Combo, and Mark Anthony, and eating some arroz con gandules and pasteles with a little mojito on the side from one of the kioscos. I'll be your guide to the island, and as fellow travelers, we will hear stories from some of the most brilliant Boricua musicians, writers, filmmakers, artists whose work comes from the heart of Puerto Rico and whose creative genius was shaped by La Isla de Encanto. The next voice you hear, well, a legend, an icon, a beloved daughter of Puerto Rico, and a personal role model for me. The only Latina ever to win an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony, an EGOT, from Singing in the Rain and West Side Story to Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego and Norman Lear's One Day at a Time. She's done it all, won it all, seen it all. Please, can we bow our heads in respect as she enters?
Hello, I'm Rita Moreno, and I am an actor.
An actor? Sure, but a dancer, a singer, and a passionate activist too. Rita was born in Humacao in the east coast of Puerto Rico and grew up in nearby Juncos. And though she left for New York at age 5, she has seemingly forgotten nothing of her time on the island.
I have the loveliest early memories of Puerto Rico. Every time someone says, can you imagine yourself when you were a little girl there? And I say, oh, easily. Because I remember I had a little brother named Francisco, and we used to play games. And the game that I always remember was we would capture this tiny little frog that literally was no bigger than my thumb. Coquís. They were called coquís because they make that kind of a sound. We used to capture a bunch of them and put them in a pail, and then we would make little roads in the ground, and we would do coquí races. My brother and I, we used to love doing that. And that was one of my sweetest memories. And the other memories I have of Puerto Rico are all lovely. When my mother used to have to do laundry, we would take a long walk, she and I and my little brother, to this creek. And my mom would carry a big una cesta, a basket. And my little brother and I would go into the creek, which was always freezing. And she would bathe us. And we'd play around in the water. And the picture is so clear to me. You know, I'm about to be 93, and that picture is still very clear. There were ladies all around the creek doing their wash, and they would pound the clothing on stones, on big stones, to pound the dirt out of them. And they would sing, they would gossip, Doña Rosa, como está, mía, across the creek. And it was a very lovely and convivial time. It's just the sweetest memory.
Festivals and food also loom large in her memory from those early years.
I remember Christmases, which was really spectacular. because we have these marvelous masks that they make, monsters with big teeth and stuff like that. And I also remember what was really fun. We go on parrandas, things where people gather and they go visit someone's home outside and make noise. We'd be hitting pots and pans and singing at 2 a.m, and they had to let us in. So everybody was always ready. They'd open the door, they'd be in their night clothes, shuffle, say, come on in. And they'd serve ron coco, which is rum with the coconut. I remember also sugar cane. That was my candy. My mom and I would go for walks, and if we passed a sugar cane field, she'd break off a piece for me and one for Francisco. And that was, it's still the best. It's so good. But they're all, as you can see, they're mostly sensory memories. But that's nice, because sensory memories stay with you forever. You can taste these memories.
Even when Rita moved to New York, her mother made sure that the tastes and sounds of Puerto Rico remain in their lives.
This was a Puerto Rican home. And I mean, my mom never did anything but Puerto Rican style food. There was always rice. No matter what, it was rice with. And if we were really having problems with money, it was rice with fried eggs. But you know, it was always delicious. My mom was a super wonderful cook. And music, always. We had records. And we had a Victrola that was hilarious. It was huge. It was a big piece of furniture. And there where you could play 78. And whenever we had dinners with friends or parties, Latino music, always rumba. We didn't call it salsa then. And we had all of the wonderful singers of the day, like Miguelito Valdez.
Rita has lived more than 8 decades in the U.S. In her eyes, she's Puerto Rican through and through.
I think being Puerto Rican is very much a part of who and what I am. I did a gig yesterday, and it had Latino people in it. And it's just amazing how we immediately fall in the, oye, ¿cómo estás tú? Yo, bueno, aquí. And the hands start flying. I cannot speak Spanish without my hands. I mean, if you had me in handcuffs, I'd completely dumb. But once a Puerto Rican, always a Puerto Rican. We have a great sense of humor. We laugh a lot. We tend to be loud sometimes. In fact, I had to be taught to not yell when I was talking, because I would talk like, oh yeah, you remember that? And I remember once an American girl saying to me, you think you can lower your voice a little? Because there's a lot of people staring at us. I say, oh, really? She'd say, yes, really. I never knew I was talking loud. It was part of who I was.
For Rita, her career and her life was changed when she played Anita in the 1961 film of West Side Story. But she almost turned down the role because of her devotion.
I tested for it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Anybody who was brunette and had brown eyes tested for the part of Anita in Hollywood. But I was one of the very few who could actually sing and dance.
And to break that down a little bit is a step chassé.
And that was a very big must for that movie, obviously. And I finally got the part, but it took months before I heard. And I was ecstatic. And when I heard, I ran to the music store to get the whole book of all the songs in the movie so that I could know them really well by the time we got to rehearsals. And then I got the shock of my life. I'm studying the words to America. I like to be in America. There's a verse. And the verse, as originally done on Broadway, was like this. Puerto Rico, you ugly island, island of tropic diseases. And I looked at that. I almost died. I mean, the blood just left my body in a pool around my ankles. And I remember thinking, I can't do that. I can't do that. I mean, what would that do to my people? And, this was the big chance. We were actually going to do a thing about Puerto Ricans. And I suffered for 2 weeks thinking, well, I guess I won't be able to do it. I was veering between not doing it, not doing it, crying all the time, not knowing what to do, not knowing who to talk to about this. And I finally decided I'm going to call my agent tomorrow. That day, I got a copy of the script, which they had rewritten. And the first thing I did was look for America. And the verse was, now, Puerto Rico, my heart's devotion. Let it sink back in the ocean. Which is very different from the tropic diseases. But I got this close to not doing that part that got me all kinds of awards. Oscar, Golden Globe.
In recent years, Rita had been to Puerto Rico a lot, helping in the wake of Hurricane Maria and often in the company of another iconic child of the island.
Thanks to Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's a very Puerto Rican person. I say that with enormous pride. We've done a bunch of things there together. The first thing I did is helping out with the first hurricane. And we went there and we brought the stuff in, and I met a whole bunch of people who were just devastated. And ever since then, I visited whenever I could. Also, Lin-Manuel and his father commissioned an artist to do a mural of Guess Who? And it's the most beautiful mural. It's beautiful because it covers every stage of my life. So it has a little 5-year-old girl in it, going to New York. And it has every moment in my life that was meaningful that's been publicized, like the Oscars and all of it. It's a huge, big mural. I have to say, when they pulled the curtain on it, I just started to sob. And I couldn't stop crying. The press was there, then they start crying because they're Puerto Rican. Everybody's crying. Lin-Manuel had tears in his eyes. His father had tears in his eyes. It was a crying fest. So I have very strong ties with my little island, very strong ties. And they have ties with me as well. I mean, it's not one-sided. I'm a big deal. I remember going to the airport, going back to New York, and this woman just grabbed me and starts to dance with me. And she's turning me around. She didn't even ask, Rita, I love you. You are wonderful. My manager was with me. He said, only in Puerto Rico. It was so sweet. And I remember once being in a recording studio, and these young girls came in. They were about 17, 16. And they stopped. They said, oh, La Leyenda. The legend. Mira, La Leyenda is here. La Leyenda. It's pretty fabulous.
As Rita loves Puerto Rico and Puerto Rico rightly adore her back, it's very fitting her roots on the island will soon be properly honored.
Well, I love my hometown. I love Humacao. I love Juncos. And actually, right now, they're talking about building a little museum, the Rita Moreno Museum. I can't believe it. And they said, would you come and visit us? And I said, well, God, of course. What am I going to say? No, museum, my name? No.
When Rita thinks of her beloved island and its people, one word comes to mind.
Warmth. We love to love, and we're very sentimental people. We cry very easily, and we love deeply and noisily. And I mean, there isn't anything we don't do that isn't noisy. At least that's how I remember it. My family was always laughing and carrying on, and we were pretty loud. But I just remember nothing but warmth.
And we have nothing but love and warmth for you, Rita. Te quiero, te quiero, te quiero.
La leyenda.
Now for one of the most celebrated Puerto Rican artists ever, to the emerging star of the island, a one-man musical phenomenon, the reggae dub innovator extraordinaire, Pachy García, who puts out records as Pachyman from his adopted home of Los Angeles. If we just wait for a moment, I think I hear his voice coming in.
My name is Pachyman. I produce my own records. I have a little studio in my basement, and I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm from Guaynabo, just south of San Juan. Most people don't even know where it is, so I just say it's San Juan.
Pachy has an infectious, all-consuming passion for music, so it's not a surprise to learn its roots can be traced back to his early childhood.
My first vivid remembrance of music was I was in the car with my mom and my dad, and there was like a heavy bebop guitar happening in the radio, and I was like, "Mom, what's that?" And my mom was like, "Oh, that's jazz." It's like, "Oh, that's cool." I grew up youngest of four. They are all kind of interested in music, but I was like the one that picked up an instrument. My mom played piano kind of as a hobby, and there was a piano in my house, and no one ever played it, but I eventually got interested in it. At the beginning, I was like, I don't like that instrument. It's kind of a boring one. But then I picked up guitar first, and my mom helped me tune the guitar and figure out what certain keys were. And eventually kind of left the guitar, switched to piano because I got really obsessed with reggae.
Some people might not think of Puerto Rico as a place for reggae, but there was a vibrant scene on the island that Pachy immersed himself in.
A lot of my friends in high school kind of all gravitated towards music. And there was a moment that we all started listening to local reggae bands. So when I was growing up in the early 2000s, by this time there was one bar deep in the mountains of Guaynabo, close to like an area called Aguas Buenas, called El Patio, the backyard. And every Saturday, there was like 2 to 4 bands, and it was all reggae bands. And it was all different bands all the time. We kind of became regulars, going there for like years, and like seeing all these bands play. It was a very fertile scene that was happening. And it was funny because it was like 10 minutes away from my house.
Pachy ended up moving to Los Angeles to fulfill his potential as a musician. Though 11 years on, he still thinks of Puerto Rico as home.
I feel like I left Puerto Rico in pursuit of a different kind of music journey. I was also like playing in all these reggae bands, and I felt like I was just gonna be stuck behind keyboards playing in reggae bands for a long time. Leaving Puerto Rico was a very fundamental moment in me because I had to shed a lot of things and be exposed to other things in like search for inspiration. But when I started like getting kind of my bearings in Los Angeles and like participating of the music scene, I did miss a lot of the community of it. I definitely felt that moment of like, oh damn, I don't think I'm ever gonna fit in here. In Puerto Rico, there is like a sense of brother sisterhood. You know, it's like very, very warm in that sense. So I felt like that comes into play in a weird way in my music.
Puerto Rico can be heard and felt in Pachy's music, including his best-known track, Trago Coqueto, in which he sings about the unmistakable breeze you feel on that island. That's right, Pachy.
warm climate, very breezy all the time. And I guess like I was just exposed to it my whole life, and it's kind of like that one that when it hits, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I've been like searching for.
In his song Sale el Sol, Pachy pays tribute to the glories of the Puerto Rican sunrise.
My girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now, we lived in this mountain apartment in like the mountains of Guaynabo. And I remember like every morning go out on the balcony and I would see the sun. I'd be like super gracious about it because it's like, wow, living in like this incredible place.
But maybe the song with the deepest resonance is Coming Home, recorded on the same piano he used to play as a kid.
That's the same piano that my mom had, and it's been out of tune. It's been out of tune forever. Thing is, like, it's perfectly like half a step out of tune. And I was coming home because my mom was going through cancer and her first surgery. She eventually passed a year later with cancer complications. But I wanted to like go back home and record in this piano. But I wanted to try to make the record have that particular tone. It's actually one of my favorite songs on that record. It definitely felt very authentic to like this feeling that I was wanting to convey.
For Pachy, Ramito, the legendary Ibero singer, is an even bigger part of his life now than it was at home. An incredible influence.
I was definitely started listening to Ramito around the time that I was about to leave. And there's a lot of recordings out there that are amazing. I also acquired the first Tony Croato record, which is like this Italian guitarist composer that lived in Uruguay and then eventually moved to Puerto Rico and became like a reborn Puerto Rican.
Tony Croato is a legend in Puerto Rican music and wrote rousing, patriotic songs about his adopted homeland like Son Borinqueños that breathed new life into folk music.
He just fell in love with Puerto Rico and like set up a studio over there in the mountains, actually in Sonadora, which is in Guaynabo that I used to live in. He constructed his own studio. He loved nature, so he had like a window that was just looking out into the mountains. There was like a rock inside of the control room that they discovered while they were recording, and he's like, that rock is staying in the control room. Like, we're building around it. And people were like, why are you keeping it? It's like, because it was there before I was here, so it's staying.
Living away from Puerto Rico always seems to intensify Pachy's passion for the island. His list of places he loves is endless.
The beaches in the southeast, there's a town called Yabucoa that has this beautiful coast that just kind of changes. It curves around, it changes differently. There's a lot of beautiful beaches in Yabucoa. I grew up going a lot to this river. It's in Naguabo, close to El Yunque. I go a lot to Mar Chiquita, which is like a beach in the north part of the island, and Los Tubos in Manatí. There's another river in a part called Juntas, which is a small town inland in the western side of the island that is just beautiful. And there's a river there called El Ataúd that I used to go to as well. Just kind of like driving that whole area from Cabo Rojo, like all that area is always like a place that is very inspiring to drive by. Talk about like driving and listening to music, that is the perfect drive to do.
It's clear how much Pachy loved the island, so maybe it's not a surprise how happy it is whenever he's heading back there too. I'm with you right there, Papa.
Flying to Puerto Rico, it's always just like, I cannot wait to exit that airplane.
Hello and welcome to San Juan, Puerto Rico. Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened.
As soon as that door opens, una brisa inconfundible, dude, an unmistakable breeze. Go outside and it's right near the beach, that airport, so it's like that breeze. Immediately, this sense of calmness comes on me. That's kind of how it is over there. It's that island life. It's just, you're just here.
For Pachy, being home amongst friends, family, just good people is the most beautiful thing.
I feel like we're just happy to be here, man. There's just a feeling of community and just being around other people. This kind of like this warmness of all of us together. The resilience also of going through like these consistent hardships and just being still like, we can get up, we can get through this. We can carry on and we can rebuild whatever situation we're getting ourselves into. We know that we have an incredible island, that we live in this beautiful, special place that carries a vibe like no other. We can take care of it and make it better. We're just like very together as a unit.
We are all indeed in this together, Pachy. Gracias, mi hermano. Sound Influence, the art and soul of Puerto Rico. Presented by Discover Puerto Rico with a production of Talk House and Atlas Obscura. I'm Luis Guzman. The show is written by Nick Dawson and produced by Nick Dawson and John Ahrens, with sound design and original music by John Ahrens. The executive producers are Ian Wheeler, Doug Baldinger, Johanna Mayer, and Chris Naka. On the next of these happy hallucinations, we will see the island through the eyes of the band Los Rivera Destino.
I think that we're always searching for places that would speak to us.
And writer Hakira Diaz.
One of the things I love most about Puerto Rico is how it feels like a mystery.